There is someone sitting in a traffic jam right now, engine idling, checking their phone, quietly furious. They have no idea that for most of human history, the road they are sitting on didn't exist. The car didn't exist, the traffic didn't exist, and every single person who ever needed to get somewhere still got there. So how? Walk? Sometimes. But the real answer is longer and stranger than that. For most of recorded history, the average person never traveled more than a few dozen miles from the place they were born. Not because they were afraid, because they had no reason to. Your food, your family, your market, your church, everything was within walking distance, because walking distance was the only distance that existed. In medieval England, a typical villager might walk 3 to 5 miles to the nearest town on market day, sell what they had, buy what they needed, and walk back. Historian Paul Slock at Oxford estimated that before 1700, around 80% of the English population lived and died within 20 miles of their birthplace. Horses changed things, but not for most people. Owning a horse in 15th century Europe cost roughly the equivalent of a year's wages for a farm laborer. You didn't just buy one. You fed it, stabled it, paid someone to care for it when it was sick. A horse was capital. Like owning a truck today without the benefit of a gas station on every corner. The people who rode were soldiers, merchants, nobles, and couriers. Everyone else walked, or they put goods on the back of a donkey, which was cheaper, slower, and considerably more stubborn. Moving heavy things over land before engines was brutal. Historian Fernand Brécon calculated that in 18th century France, sending a ton of grain 30 miles by cart cost the same as sending it 300 miles by river. Water was always cheaper. Cities that sat on rivers grew large precisely because of that armistice. Roman roads were extraordinary for their time, stretching over 250,000 miles across the empire by 200 DD. But even on cart creaks and groans, its wheels in against the snow road. But even on those roads, the average speed of a loaded cart was 2 miles per hour. A journey from Rome to London took roughly 3 weeks if the weather held and the axles didn't break. In 1669, a scheduled stagecoach service opened between London and Edinburgh. The journey took 13 days. By 1750, improvements to road surfaces cut that to 4 days. By 1830, a fast mail coach with fresh horses swapped every 10 miles could do it in 43 hours. People wrote about this in awe. 43 hours felt like teleportation.
The inside of a stagecoach held 4 passengers, pressed against each other, with no suspension worth the name on roads that were often little more than packed mud. Outside, passengers sat on the roof in the rain and held on. Ticket prices were high enough that most people still walk.
Between 1760 and 1830, Britain built over 4,000 miles of canals. A single horse walking along a towpath could pull a narrow boat carrying 50 tons of coal. The same horse that could drag maybe half a ton on a dirt road. Canal freight rates dropped by around 75% compared to road haulage. Factories that couldn't exist before suddenly could, because raw materials could reach them and finished goods could leave. The canal system moved everything at a walking pace, pulled by horses, for decades before the railway made it obsolete. In September 1830, the Liverpool and Manchester Railway opened. The journey took about an hour and a half, covering 35 miles. That same trip by road had taken 4 hours on a good day. On opening day, the locomotive Rocket hit a speed of 36 miles per hour, faster than any human being had ever intentionally traveled on land. A cabinet minister named William Haskin stepped off his train to greet the Duke of Wellington
And was struck by the rocket on the adjacent track. He became the first person killed by a railway locomotive. The technology that changed the world announced itself by running someone over. By 1900, cities ran on horses. New York City had somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000 horses at any given time. Each one produced between 15 and 35 pounds of manure per day. Sanitation departments across American cities were spending millions annually just to remove it. In 1894, the Times of London predicted that by 1950, every street in the city would be buried 9 feet deep in horse manure. The car did not arrive as a luxury toy. It arrived as a solution to a very specific urban crisis. In 1885, Carl Benz in Mannheim, Germany, completed the Benz patent motorwagen. It had 3 wheels, a single-cylinder engine producing less than 1 horsepower, and a top speed about 10 miles per hour.
In 1888, his wife Berza took it without telling him and drove 66 miles from Mannheim to Forsberg to visit her mother.
She stopped at a pharmacy along the way to buy fuel, which was sold as a cleaning solvent. She also fixed a clogged fuel pipe with a hairpin and insulated a wire with her gaiter.
She sent Carl a telegram when she arrived. He read about the trip in the newspaper. In 1908, Henry Ford introduced the Model T at a price of $825. By 1925, after the moving assembly line had transformed production, it cost $260.
Ford sold 15 million of them before discontinuing the model in 1927. In 1900, there were roughly 8,000 cars in the United States. By 1920, there were 8 million. By 1930, 23 million.
Roads were rebuilt for cars. Zoning laws were rewritten around cars. Suburbs were designed for cars. The drive-through, the motel, the strip mall, the interstate highway, none of it existed before the car made it necessary. Before cars, most people lived in walking distance communities. The corner shop was generally on the corner. The doctor was 3 streets away. You knew your neighbors because you had to. Urban planner Jane Jacobs wrote in 1961 that the car had done more damage to American cities than any other single force, because entire neighborhoods were demolished to build highways through them. In the 1950s and 1960s, more than 1 million Americans were displaced from their homes by urban highway construction alone. Someone is in a traffic jam right now, engine idling, phone in hand. The car that is trapping them is also the reason they live where they live, work where they work, and shop where they shop. Every city built around the car made the car mandatory. You can't opt out of a system that designed itself around your participation.
The horse is gone. The canal narrowboat is a tourist attraction. The stagecoach road is a motorway. And the journey from London to Edinburgh that took 13 days in 1669 now takes 4.5 hours on a train or 50 minutes on a plane.
And we still complain about it.